please.
Well, welcome.
This will probably be a little bit of the Mutual Admiration Society because
I just adore Jeanna. I adore working with Jeanna. So I'm going to ask you questions we've never really delved into.
Okay.
Here we go.
Here we go.
No. Well, first of all, give us your journey. What I want to know is
Yeah.
where you were when you went, oh, I think I may have this thing called talent, and how you developed it, and where you did that, and
Okay.
that.
So I was not one of those kids at like 13, 14 that you were like, that kid's gonna make it. I think my mom will probably be the first to say that. She was like, it was fine. But I did go to a performing arts boarding school, which I loved, and obviously was surrounded by a lot of amazing training for a long time, and that continued in college, being around, sort of loving the learning of it. And then I would say a lot of learning happened post college, like in the real world. I remember my first job was We Will Rock You, and I was the understudy for Scaramouche, which is this massive rock show, Queen music.
And this is in London.
This is in London.
Okay.
You know, like many things in this industry, someone has to take a bet on you when you're maybe a little too green for something, and someone took a bet on me, and I went on, and I was very bad the first time I went on, and I remember not the other ensemble girls not hiding how bad they thought I was, because I just hadn't had that experience of like how to sing on a microphone over such a large sound for 3 hours straight, and I just sort of like blew it all in the first 10 minutes and then sort of struggled for the rest. So a lot of learning really has come at actually continuing like to learn the craft in different workshops and stuff like that. And I often feel like I get a job, anything goes one being one, where I'm like, wow, I wouldn't have even said yes to that audition because I don't think that's a role I would get. And that has happened to me many times where like the actual role is the thing that like extends me to be like, okay, how am I going to tap, you know, or something like that. So yeah.
So you were raised in the UK?
I was born in Germany. We lived there till I was about 7. Then we moved to Birmingham, which is about 2 hours north of London. And then
We have to talk. I'm spending 6 weeks there coming up. We'll talk.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
And then I went to boarding school about an hour outside of London from 11 to 18. And then drama school, Liverpool, 11 to 21. And then I did 1 year in the West End, that Queen show that I'm talking about. And my green card came through in that year. And in the West End, it's different to Broadway. In the Broadway, they have great outs. So you really only have to, especially if you're in the ensemble, you can give 4 weeks notice at any point.
yeah, it makes the producers so happy.
But it's wonderful for the performers because you can continue to audition and have a job. In the West End, they're not as kind as that. They do
A year contract.
Clean out, yeah, and you have to decide, do I want to stay for a whole other year or go? So I made a bet on myself and said, no, I'm going to, and I moved like literally within a week of We'll Rock You closing. I moved to New York to, you know, do the Times Square open calls. And that's how I got my first gig. I can't remember what the question was now.
No, this is good. You're sort of tracing the trajectory of how you got to New York.
Okay. Oh, okay. And so now I live in New York.
And there you go.
Yeah. That was 15 years ago. I've been in New York 15 years.
Do you like living in New York?
I love living in New York when I have a job.
Yeah.
So
I want to talk about how you create a character and approach a part. And this is somewhat of a conversation.
Okay.
So I'd heard of her work through the grapevine. And I first saw you in Diana, which if you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix. It's unbelievable. She's amazing. And I was watching her on stage and I was like, well, that was my dream, Mary Poppins. So called and you graciously said yes and came the first time. And
Did you audition her or was it just an offer?
it's just an offer. Yeah. Yeah, who has the time? No, but that is something we do here. So casting, and Michael Baxter is a huge part of it, the artistic associate here, and the Telsey, and the director. It is a gift. We get to play fantasy Broadway. We literally just get on a Zoom and go, who our wish list are, and we just make the offers, which is really a sign of respect too. Like, you know, to make her read from Mary Poppins, to me, would be ridiculous. You know, sometimes when you have people who you don't know their work and they've submitted, you'll ask them to submit a tape or read, and, you know, and that's respectable and everybody understands that. But, you know, anyway, so Mary Poppins is a very different part from Princess Diana, and Reno Sweeney is a very different part from those things. So I want to know, how do you begin to approach understanding a character in your interpretation?
Okay, so I think, for example, so I didn't know Anything Goes actually before very well, and so I thought she was just a nightclub singer. So I approached it like with a very jazz kind of cabaret vibe, and then I met with the MD, and he was like, "She's so much bigger than that. You need to think like Ethel Merman. You need to think like." Yeah, she's not standing in the spotlight singing while everyone finishes their food. She's a crook. She's doing. So you'll see tonight, right? She's a preacher, but then she's also friends with the gangsters, and it's also a show. And you know, so you're like not sure what she is. She's a showman, you know. So I like absorbed that, and then Marsha had very specific ideas, and so often I think it's like. You're trying to like, the creatives have thought about it so much when you get to the first day, and yes, you've given it some ideas, but you don't know that much. And so I think it's like your job to try and like extract what costume is trying to say, and what music is trying to say, and what directing is trying to say, and what these nails are trying to say that they put on me. And then you sort of like put it all into a mixing pot and like have thoughts, and then at some point it starts to feel like you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say that process is rare. That sense of what are all my colleagues giving me to help me. So what I noticed in both the rehearsal for both Poppins and this, you're very quiet.
I'm a very quiet person, yeah.
Yeah, and you can just tell everybody's like, "Yeah, okay," you know, like. And I had to say, Marsha, I said, this is the most amazing process. Don't let it throw you. She's literally learning and absorbing everything. And it's so great in the rehearsal platform because you'll see all this chaos, and I'll look over and she'll be like, and I just know, oh, you're watching your colleagues, you're picking up that. And that ability to accumulate and then emerge with your own. Do you apply that to other areas of your life? Like, where did you learn that? It's so rare to pull in from other people to create who you are.
Wow, I don't know if I agree with that, because I think I've watched some like really great actors in my time. Like I just stood by for Annalie Ashford in Sweeney Todd, and that's exactly how she worked. She was very she wanted to spend the rehearsals like chatting and then becoming friends with Josh and like getting comfortable sitting right next to him and getting comfortable holding his hand and like and stuff like that. So I know some actors come in with very clear ideas about who something is before, but I don't think that's everybody. Yeah.
It's very exciting. It's very exciting to witness, be around, and your colleagues.
But Marsha thought I was upset or something.
No. You just have to, because usually, you know, it's Reno Sweeney or something. You come in guns a-blazing, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, that's not going to happen here.
Oh, yeah.
Believe me, you'll see them eventually. And she was like, you're exactly right, you know? Yeah.
There's also something people forget is like, as soon as you put a microphone on, you
and a
like some people think they want the Muny performance in the rehearsal room. Right. I'm like, I'm going to be wearing a microphone, so I don't have to do 200. It's going to be picked up, you know.
The tap dancing in this show.
Yes.
Talk to us about that.
Okay, so you cast me, and I immediately emailed Jared a huge apology. I'm so sorry that you have me as your tap dancer. I'm sure you're wishing you had an amazing tap dancer as Reno Sweeney. And then I signed up for, now I have tapped. I tapped in high school, obviously, for, it wasn't 0 to nothing. Actually, do you know what Superfans are? They're sort of like the they get their term name because they see so many Broadway shows, and they will see like 70 in a year, and they come and there was a guy last night that came and he had like 40 playbills to sign of like everything I've been in. I was like, wow, and he said, you're not known as a dancer, you're not even known as much as of a comedian, but you're doing so great. And I'm like, ouch. But yeah, no, I definitely was really, really, really nervous about the tap. But you sent me my tap shoes like back in March, April, and I signed up for Broadway Dance Center virtual. Actually, I took a vacation, and those tap shoes have been to Egypt, Barcelona, New Orleans, like everywhere. I'm tapping around them. And then about 3 weeks before we started, Jared actually had some of the choreography figured out. So he sent me those, and then I spent like 3 weeks before we came here, like in my parents' garage, like really, singing it out. But you know, I think I'm faking it okay, and we'll see how I do tonight. But it's also surrounded by people who do this as their bread and butter. So you know, you do a nice opening, and then you hand the baton to the people who are gonna tap. You know.
Right. This is your second sojourn at the Muny.
Yeah.
So when we called and asked, why did you say yes?
Well, first of all, I love working at the Muny. Actually, why? When you announced your season, I actually asked my agent to reach out to ask if I could play Ursula.
Oh, okay.
And then, because this is how you see yourself versus how other people see you. And so I was like, I'm Ursula, and they replied Reno Sweeney, and I was like, okay. First of all, I love the process so much in Mary Poppins. I found Mary Poppins quite overwhelming because I didn't know what to expect. And things like tech process is normally a very slow process. And I remember thinking, it's okay, because when we're in tech, you'll be able to like start like solidifying some of this, but it's pre-teched, which means like you literally step in the show and you fly and it all happens around you. So there was definitely a moment in Mary Poppins where I thought, I'm not going to be able to succeed here. This is too hard. But so this time I sort of knew going in, like, get that choreography under your belt, get some of those lyrics under your belt and all those sort of stuff. But Mary Poppins' experience really did help me then in the standby process that came next with Sweeney Todd, because there's definitely an element of like, I'm gonna have to figure it out in the moment. Like, I'm gonna have to trust my body and my voice to navigate how I'm singing or how the audience's reaction is, and you can't sort of have everything ABC. So it was actually really nice to have that Mary Poppins experience right before the standby experience, which was obviously a thing that had like virtually no rehearsal by the time I went on. So I loved the Muny for that. I loved that you get to play roles that if they were on Broadway would probably be cast by a 3-time Tony winner, and it's a chance to play amazing roles and get that experience. The theater out there, I mean, the sound, I'm sure you'll hear tonight. My parents couldn't stop talking about how good they thought the sound was. You can hear everything, and it's a true like pleasure to put that microphone on and hear and to sing in that space. Both Mary Poppins and this time have been full moon weeks, which means the moon is behind the audience and is there to be a full scene partner with if you don't know where to have eye focus. And then also they treat us great here. The Chase Hotel is like heaven. I was thinking this morning, I think I need a vacation. Then I was like, why don't I just go enjoy the vacation that's downstairs? And I went and joined all the angels at the pool this morning. But it's like a really challenging 3 weeks that's also a lot of fun. So I just jumped at any chance and was excited to take on a lot of challenges with the tap and with the sound of the singing and everything like that.
Yeah, no, Poppins was gargantuan, it's interesting. And one of the things I so cherished about you in performances, it's a really challenging part because it's not really written. If you really look at what happens in the stage adaptation, she's standing there as a tour guide to London as these kids are running around the stage all night. Like, there's nothing. And you made her a character. You got angry at the kids. Like there was this whole life force that you'd never seen in Poppins, and I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. We had this conversation, and it was something completely that you brought to it, but it was a big, overwhelming part. And I remember on the last night, because sometimes this isn't people's jam, like it's intense, and,
Yeah.
and you gotta thing, and then some people, it's a totally jam, and you walked up and you said, any show, anytime.
Yeah, I love
I was
it.
like, oh, good, it was her jam.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
good thing. Does anyone have any questions?
Just a silly question.
Yeah.
In Mary Poppins, I mean, there you were flying across the pit, flying across the audience, finally landing in a golf cart.
Yeah.
You weren't trembling, you weren't crying, you weren't screaming like I would. What's it like flying over that? Is that terrifying or
No, I'm not scared of heights. I'm also one of those people that if you're like, do a trust fall, I'd just be like, bing, and like, no, I didn't find that scary. I found that really thrilling. The things I found scary was like, you're not used to how it's going to sound. You're not used to the actual environment on the stage is kind of disorienting the first time you step in. I remember running off stage and this huge piece of set is like moving towards me with like 7 guys coming, and I'm like, and so just sort of those things was really scary the first time. It's a huge stage out there, and all those sort of things. Yeah.
We were justifiably proud and a little boastful of this wonderful theater that we have here in our city.
Yeah.
In terms of the pantheon of performing spaces, how does this compare? How many times do you have 11,000 seat house?
Well, it's definitely the biggest house I've ever performed in. I've done the Fox, I did Wicked, but I think that's only like 3 or 4 or something like that. So the actual space and what it can hold is amazing. But in addition to that, I did some press the other day, and 7, 8 people came up to me. We saw the show. When I'm at the Chase, the barman comes up. The hostess has seen the show. It seems like it's the actual people in St. Louis. It's a thing to do in the summer. It's like the Edinburgh Fringe or something. It's like an actual event that people are proud to participate in and do those other things, and that's very special because it's coming from St. Louis as opposed to something that's touring into St. Louis.
Yeah.
It was very cool to
be.
me.
A second here that you do wonderful.
It's a
programming here, but it is an event.
It's a sports game in a way. That's the kind of energy it feels like it has. Like it's like people get their food and they sit down and it's outside and they're chatting and so it has a really unique energy and space, yeah.
Can I ask a Diana question? I didn't know you until Diana.
Okay.
And I raced to the television when the Netflix thing came out, watched it day one with a friend who thought it was the worst experience of her life.
Yeah.
We loved it.
Okay, thank you.
We loved you. We thought it was just so smart, clever, and delightfully campy in its own way.
Uh-huh.
And we felt that if you all had gotten the run you deserved and the tourists had found you and it wasn't launching in the middle of the COVID emergence, it might also eventually become like a Rocky Horror kind of thing. With that, cheer your rival and hiss at Charles or at Pamela Parker Bowles. Tell me about the audience reaction that you did get when that show was on.
So here's the thing about new musicals is like when they're being created, it's a very protected space. That it's like everybody drinks the Kool-Aid and you're kind of like in this bubble, and then you birth this baby and you don't really know what the baby is. And I think we thought we'd made a very pretty baby, and it turns out it was a very quirky baby. But so there's definitely fault there. Like if we had known what a quirky baby it was, I think the marketing maybe would have reflected that, or all those sort of things. So but it's nice that what immediately was such a disappointment because the critics hated us so much has developed this audience that did jive with it and did enjoy it, and I don't know, it's in a way it's like everything goes the way it goes, but in a way it's like really special that when I meet someone who likes it, it feels really special and personal because it wasn't just following the masses because everybody hated it when it came out, so, or at least that's how it felt. Right.
Well, if you haven't heard the recording, listen to it, because she's unbelievable on it. I mean, I'll tell you, we've never had this. My theory on it, I think the problem you guys had was the crown. And if The Crown didn't exist,
Yes.
they would have taken it in its own terms. But everybody was sitting there with that as their paradigm, and the change in the tone
was too much.
Was too much.
And the other thing that was about it was, so the pandemic happened in March,
Yeah.
and we filmed in July. We were one of the first film sets in the world. And it was bubbled, it was very intense, but there's no audience in that thing, right? And that's the thing that's weird, because it's dry, there's no audience. But if they had just released it straight away and been like, this Broadway show that got shut down in previews went back into its theater to film itself, and here it is on Netflix, I think it would have got a very different reaction. But The Crown actually really, it's saying Netflix, right? And The Crown took priority over us on Netflix. They didn't want us to be released. So it was like a year and a half later, the world was already back by the time that they released Diana the Musical. And by that point, people were in a very different mind frame. They weren't as like, it wasn't just like, oh, wow, wasn't that cool that they got together and did that in the pandemic? It was more like, okay, is this a movie? Yeah, I don't know, it just was, there were lots of little things that didn't quite work for that show.
But if you haven't heard the score, it's crazy amazing. Yes.
I also really enjoyed it, and I wanted to ask, what was it like to portray just Diana, a real character who's very iconic and still had living family members?
Yeah, I'm British. So she really is like a steadfast character in my family's life. Like my mom really looked like Diana growing up. So my grandma would always be like, doesn't your mother look like that Princess Diana? You know, so, and I remember where she was when she died. I remember my mom talking about her when we were kids. So it was something I felt familiar with, something I felt quite proud to portray and dive into. There was also so much content and footage. And that's one where I started really slowly. I started just like, you know, watching her or her voice placement or all those sort of things. And then there was so many gifts, like her diary, the Andrew Morton book that got released, they issued a new one where it was actually her handwritten verbatim tapes. So I would try and read them as her, you know, because you'd have her actual words and stuff like that. So there was just so much stuff to draw on and sort of do that. And you know, like, I think if we'd have known it was going to be received so campy and stuff, it probably would have changed the show. We would have kind of tried to like reflect on that or like add an opinion, but there really was no added opinion, I felt, in our show. It was just like a celebration of the story and kind of like a heightened artistic telling of her life. For better or worse, we weren't trying to add that when we made it. Yeah.
Question for you and Mike. So you mentioned 3 weeks here. I thought there was usually 1 week of rehearsals and 1 week of game time. So how many, and I guess part 2 question is, how many people do you come back to St. Louis to perform with that you worked with before?
Yeah, I think it's 10 days of rehearsals and 7 days of shows, right?
11 and 7.
11 and 7.
Yeah.
Maybe I hear in the olden days they used to pack it in more with sweat text and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But a few more extra days, which are very appreciated. Bethany, who's one of the angels, was with Diana with me. There's 2 cast members who were in Mary Poppins with me. Jay, who plays Billy. We've never done a show together, but we've been like mutual friends for years. It's a really tight-knit community. And so, yeah, you really do sort of meet the same people you've worked with or things like that. It's nice. Yeah.
Is that pretty typical, Mike?
Yeah, it is. You know, there's a couple things on a professional level, particularly like Muny on the resume means a lot, and also in terms of the audition room and stuff. If somebody sees that you performed at the Muny, it says something about your ability to, you know, be in the room, be present, do the 11-day thing and stuff. But it is an incredible community. Like, so many casts have here. They still have text chains, and they all talk to each other. The Fiddler cast this year still, like, because occasionally I'm still on it. So there is a real sort of communal sense in the industry of having been or being a part of the community. It's quite lovely, actually. It really is. And I'm getting the signal that we have to get you. You got a show to do, Miss Sweeney. Please join me in thanking the amazing team that you are such. What she's gonna do tonight. Get ready. Get ready.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very
you.
much.
So Jeanna was super sweet and signed playbills. So we have signed playbills. I mean.